Russia is denying responsibility after a diplomatic flashpoint in the heart of Kyiv. Moscow now says it did not target the Qatari Embassy, instead blaming Ukraine's own air defense system for the damage. In a sharply worded statement, Russia's foreign ministry insisted that diplomatic missions are never targets of Russian strikes and claimed the embassy was hit after a malfunctioning Ukrainian interceptor went off course. The message was deliberate and diplomatic. Russia called Qatar a priority partner and a friendly country, stressing that its intended targets were nowhere near the embassy compound. But Kyiv tells a very different story. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the damage occurred during one of the largest aerial assaults in months, involving an Oreshnik hypersonic missile, more than 200 drones, and multiple cruise missiles fired across the country. Zelensky underscored the symbolism, pointing out that Qatar has played a key role in mediating prisoner exchanges between Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine's foreign minister went further, warning that strikes so close to European Union and NATO borders represent a grave threat to European security.
Цієї ночі, коли пан Матінка був уже в дорозі до Києва, Росія нанесла брутальний удар по Києву та Львову. 4 людини були вбиті тут, у столиці, пошкоджене посольство Катару, руйнувань зазнала критична інфраструктура та енергетика, але російський терор не зупинив візит мого чеського колеги, і я вдячний ще раз, Петере, за твою сміливість.
Russia, however, says the operation was deliberate, but not against diplomats. Defense officials confirm a massive strike campaign aimed at Ukraine's energy infrastructure and drone production facilities, framing the assault as retaliation for an alleged attack on the Russian president's residence in the Novgorod region. The Qatari Foreign Ministry expressed deep regret over the damage sustained by its embassy building in Ukraine and confirmed that none of its diplomats or embassy staff were injured. However, its statement does not explicitly mention Russia as the party responsible for the attack on Kyiv. The Gulf Cooperation Council, along with Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Somalia, also expressed deep regret and concern over the damage sustained by the Qatar Embassy in Ukraine as a result of shelling that targeted the capital, Kyiv. But again, none named Russia in their statements. Now, responsibility is being contested, blame is being deflected, and diplomacy is once again caught in the crossfire. As embassies take damage, alliances feel the strain, and the war's ripple effects spread far beyond the battlefield.
A blunt warning from Moscow has reignited fears of a wider Russia-Europe war. Putin ally and deputy chair of Russian Security Council Dmitry Medvedev lashed out at France and its allies, accusing them of pushing Europe towards direct conflict. His remarks followed new plans by Britain and France to deploy troops to Ukraine after a ceasefire. Dmitry Medvedev, Russia's former president, issued a sharply worded post on X targeting France and other European governments. He accused what he called Europe's ruling elites of deliberately pushing the continent toward war. Medvedev dismissed proposals to send Western troops into Ukraine, saying Moscow has repeatedly made its position clear. Russia, he warned, will never accept European or NATO forces operating on Ukrainian soil. Medvedev's message ended with a chilling line. "Come on then, this is what you'll get." Attached to the post was a video showing several large explosions, filling the screen with fire and shockwaves. He slammed Macron, accusing him of indulging in what he calls pathetic bullshit by speaking of troop deployment. The warning came just days after Britain and France announced plans for a multinational force in Ukraine should a ceasefire be reached. French President Emmanuel Macron said the deployment could include thousands of French troops. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the move would create a legal framework for Allied forces to operate on Ukrainian soil. The plan includes securing Ukraine's skies and seas and rebuilding its armed forces to deter future attacks. Russia's foreign ministry also responded swiftly, calling the Western plans militaristic and increasingly dangerous. Moscow warned that any foreign troops, bases, or military infrastructure inside Ukraine would be considered foreign intervention. Such deployments, the ministry said, would pose a direct threat not only to Russia, but to Europe itself. Russia declared that any Western forces on Ukrainian territory would be treated as legitimate combat targets. Despite Moscow's warnings, Ukraine's allies say they are pressing ahead. At a major meeting in Paris, leaders from Europe pledged expanded support for Kyiv. The plan includes layered international security guarantees, training, equipment, and air, land, and sea backing. Officials say the goal is to deter any future Russian attack and bring an end to the nearly 4-year-long war.